faster than a speeding typewriter, more powerful than a printing press, able to speak over tall buildings in a single sound. Look, up on the dial!
It's a conservative!
It's a liberal! It's Supermouth! Yes, it's Supermouth, strange visitor from the past with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal talk show hosts. Supermouth, who can change the course of local politics, bend ears with his bare mouth, and who, disguised as Mike Wiley, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan radio show, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way.
Good morning. Welcome to another adventure into podcast radio. I am Mike Wiley, the former evil radio talk show host, now evil podcast host. Why am I evil? Because I expose what the enemies of this nation are doing. How can I do that? It's quite simple. If you ever were involved in watching so many spy shows and mystery shows and Sherlock Holmes and all sorts of those shows, you come to appreciate deductive reasoning and being able to take 1 and 1 is 2 and be able to determine when it becomes 4. And it's when it becomes 4 is what you have to be careful for. Now, this show is going to be done in a totally different way. I already had it set up to make it like a game show, but I realize what the stakes are, and I don't think you realize what the stakes are. So I'm going to remind you, because I've been covering the Democratic Party's war on the United States since 1865. No, I wasn't here in 1865, but I have followed their history. I understand their modus operandi and what they do. Okay? Now, it's a little different now because in 1993, the Communist Chinese Party decided to invest in the Democratic Party. If you don't believe me, all you have to do is read all about the Clintons and what they did and the high-tech equipment that was sent in terms of gyro technology to China so they could make sure that their missiles landed right up our ass, okay? Yeah, thanks, Bill and Hillary. There's a lot to that that's going on. We do know that Obama basically was a plant from the Communist Chinese. And for at least 30 years, the Democratic Party has been the operational arm, the fifth column, if you would, of the Chinese Communist Party in the United States. That's not up for debate because there's just too much evidence of what it is. Okay, too much evidence what it is. And I'll give you an example. Ever hear of Wikipedia? Oh, it's got all the information you want to know. Wikipedia has 22 pages on the life and times of Barack Obama. And you go through it and you read the whole thing and you say, oh my goodness, they've covered everything. But there's one thing they didn't cover, which I found unusual because Barack Obama is the first American president to spend so much time with the Communist Chinese that it's kind of questionable. All right, 2009, when his first year in office, he went right to China to get his recommendations of what he should do and let his boss know that he's on target. All right, he met with the Chinese 6 to 8 times during his presidency. Okay, during his presidency, he gave Afghanistan to China. Yeah, he was the one behind Abbeygate and all of that. That was all designed to get us out of Afghanistan because Afghanistan is right next to China, and Afghanistan has our greatest military air base, Bagram Air Force Base, and Biden gave it up as part of the deal that he was following from Obama. We all know now that Biden didn't have the mental capacity of a gnat. I'm sorry, maybe a gnat was too strong. But we knew, and they knew what was going on. But it didn't matter because the Democrats like to put people who are so damn stupid in positions so you can manipulate them. That's their whole thing, is manipulation. You know, it's like that Martian space where they have all these Martians going around these big uniforms. Okay, and they're all being run by this head that's controlling them. Well, that's what the Democratic Party is. The Democratic Party is our enemy. They will always be our enemy until the day they begin to show respect to this nation. And they don't. I've got show after show I've covered. I've covered all this stuff already. And so I was going to actually do a little funny kind of game show thing because there's some obvious things that I wanted to bring out to you in the last couple of days. Other people have already brought out exactly what's going on. But let me tell you what's going on. Okay, for 4 years, we had to put up with Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and Barack Obama. And in those 4 years, our nation was nearly destroyed. Okay, our military capabilities, everything. Okay, the Houthis, the Houthis were attacking us every other day in the Middle East and the waters. The Americans didn't do anything about it. Why? Why didn't they fight back? And now with Trump back, we have fought back. All right, and we pummeled the crap out of them. And that shit's not going to continue to go. It's a different ball game now. America is strong again because of our leadership. But there's also something that I noticed today. I was watching Pete Hegseth, you know, the guy that supposedly drinks all the time. He's a lunatic. He's got no criteria. He's worthless. He's just worthless. Why did you make him Secretary of State? Every Democrat who gets a paycheck from communist China, all right, tells you that he's no good. But we know differently. We real Americans know differently. Because all we have to do is watch Pete in action. And I just watched him. 5 minutes ago, I was just watching him in the Philippines. Okay? When you see what's going on, I mean, sit back and think what's going on. What is going on? And I'll tell you what's going on. The communist Chinese get on the phone with Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi. I don't know if she's capable of answering the phone anymore. And they're telling them what they want. Okay? And the biggest thing the communist Chinese want is that Pete Hegseth not be Secretary of Defense. Now, why would the Chinese have a problem with that? It's quite simple. Because Pete Hegseth is going to kick their ass. Okay? Pete Hegseth was the perfect person to put in charge of the military. Okay? He's young enough. He's experienced, as he says, he's got dust on his boots. He has fought in the wars. He knows what it's like. And he can relate that so well to the U.S. military anywhere in the world that they are. And even in the Philippines, he was doing PT with the Philippine military this morning, okay, building this relationship that's been there, but it hasn't been a clear relationship the last 4 years because a lot of people didn't know if America was ready to do its job. And America's job is to maintain freedom all on the planet. And the communist Chinese, their job is to enforce their unilateral bullshit communist party crap and try to stick it up our ass. And it ain't going to happen. So I'm going to go backwards in time for this past week to get to what I'm going to talk to. What did I watch? What have you watched? Remember, you have to watch what people do, not what they say. Okay? Now, we know that when Abbeygate occurred, which was a Barack Obama deal that they blamed Biden for, Biden probably doesn't even know how to spell gate, probably doesn't know where it is. All right? But that action caused the death of 13 Americans. It was a major league screw up. Did the Democratic senators like Senator Wyden of Oregon, Senator Warren of Virginia, Senator Bennett of Colorado, Senator King of Maine, Senator Ossoff of Georgia, Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona? Huh? Did they bring anything up about Abbeygate? Did they go and meet in the senatorial committees and say, hey, what are you guys doing? They didn't say a damn thing because they're Democrats. And Democrats are not allowed to speak up against their own people. Otherwise, the emperor of the universe, who evidently is Xi Jinping, will slap them down. Slap them down. Okay? For the past 30 years, the Democratic Party is hand and foot with the Communist Chinese Party. That's not going to end because the Democratic Party needs to have that external help to destroy America and put us into ruin. And that's what their job is. So why do I know this to be true? Because I document, my brain holds data, and it says, hey, this is the problem to the Chinese. This is the problem to the Chinese. What have we seen the last few days? We're working backwards because we're going to expose a crime. It's kind of hard for me to come out and present something to you when all of a sudden I hear this noise. You know, it's like Dumb and Dumber. We're in the truck with the guy, and they're making all these noises, and it's driving them nuts. That's what it is to me. Okay, back to what I was talking about. What have we observed over the last couple of days? Well, let's see. See if you can make sense of what I'm about to say. What have I seen on TV? I see this guy named J.D. Vance. He's Vice President of the United States. He's a young guy. He's also a former Marine. Well, actually, he's still a Marine, but he's a military guy. He served in the military, okay? And he's been out visiting the troops in Guantanamo. He's got a presence. He has a military leadership presence that I know the Communist Chinese do not like. You got Pete Hegseth. Pete's a great guy, okay? He's in Manila today with the Philippines, and he just had a press conference, and I watched it. It was awesome. It was awesome. What are we seeing? We're seeing you've got to understand, Donald Trump is a 10-level master in chess. He knows how to play all the pieces before anybody else is paying attention to what's going on. We have just seen this week Hegseth and Vance showing strength, military ties, building the war ethos that we need to put back into our military, because for the last 4 years, the Communist Chinese have run our military through the Biden administration and their agent, Barack Hussein Obama. So I'm watching this and I'm listening to Pete and I'm seeing what's going on. And I'm realizing why the Chinese want to get rid of Hegseth. Especially since he's about to leave for Europe, for Asia, go to Hawaii, go to Guam, go to the Philippines. He's going to Japan, then he's going to South Korea, and then he's going to Australia. And what he's doing is building up the alliance that should have always have been here in a certain strength, which of course was depleted for 4 years, per the instructions of the Communist Chinese Party to Barack Obama, their agent, and Joe Biden, the brain dead. We have watched this, but now we don't know what we're watching. We haven't realized what we are watching. We're watching Donald Trump play 5-level degree chess, whatever you want to call it. And he's placing his pieces out. And one of those pieces is going to Greenland, along with his wife. He originally wasn't going to go, but there's some people that want us there, and then some people that don't want us there. Okay, we do have a military base on Greenland, so we do have. It's not like it's anything different that we're not show up, but we know that the Communist Chinese are trying to break into our territory. You know, they have their job of what they want to do. They want to control all the rare earth minerals to control the earth, okay? We're in a war with the Communist Chinese. We're not in a war with the Russians, okay? Now, why would the Democrats keep telling us we're at war with the Russians? The Russians are our enemies. The Russians are this. Because they're Chinese communist mouthpieces. They all lie. They all lie. And one of the things they've been instructed to do is to destroy Pete Hegseth and as many of Trump's top people in the cabinet, to try to make us think like they're fools. They don't know what they're doing. All these people are specialized. They all know what the hell they're doing. Okay? But what we're going to do is we're going to say, hey, we got this little thing that the CIA has already said is okay. They downloaded on everybody's computer and telephone. Okay, and that's what's supposed to be used. That's what the instructions are. But what happens is, and this is interesting, and this is the key thing that gives it all away. I saw this article, and it said something about Kathleen Levitt. She's a speaker for Trump. And there was an article about who gave up the information. Who was it that added Goldberg, the CIA, Mossad, whatever, CIA, communist Chinese spy? Okay. You got to remember, our media is not American media. We all know it. We've all seen it in action. Their job is to lie, steal, and deceive the American people. But the problem is that when somebody like me observes what they're doing, I can come tell you exactly what they're doing because logic dictates what they're doing. Logic dictates what they're doing. And so what happens is you've got this scheduled hearing. Okay, here. All you have to do is go into Hearings Intelligence Committee. All right. And what you're going to see is that here's the schedule. Here's the schedule. March 26th, closed briefing, intelligent matters at 2:30. 3:25, closed briefing, intelligent matters. 3:25, open hearing, worldwide threats, 10 a.m. And then the hearing before that is not since March 12th. That's 13 days go by before this scheduled meeting on Tuesday. And what happens on Monday? On Monday, this Chinese agent who is working for the Chinese government, he runs the Atlantic. He's got a history that I've gone through that is very questionable, but it makes sense. Okay, and I hate to say this, but evidently, a lot of people may not know this, but years ago, Israel had a very close relationship with communist China because they were the only people that were really warming to Israel at a time when the Middle East was always bologna and cheese. And so I believe that the communist Chinese were working to build a group of people to infiltrate Mossad, infiltrate the U.S., and still be communist Chinese agents. And I believe Mr. Goldberg is one of them. I don't need to read anything about Mr. Goldberg. His actions tell me what's going on. Okay? So evidently he gets put on this chat. Now I gotta say something because this is what what I can't show you confirms what's going on. I can't show you what confirms this is going on because what I was going to show you is no longer in existence in the media. It doesn't exist. I couldn't find it. It came out on Wednesday. I couldn't find it Thursday. I looked all day yesterday trying to find this story. It disappeared. And the story was Caroline Levitt. I think it's named Caroline Levitt. There's a story, and it talks about the person who put Goldberg on the list is this Chinese guy who's in working with the secretary of the CIA. I mean, sorry, of Mike Waltz working there. And it had his background, and it had his wife's background. And his wife is Chinese. She's also tied in very closely to the Democratic Party. And what I have observed, and I observed this information during the last campaign, that Kamala Harris is tied in with the Chinese. That Kamala Harris was the Chinese pick. That's why she was there. She's the Chinese pick. But she's too damn stupid to get past everything, no matter that they added $2 million or $2 billion. I can't remember what the number was that they spent on her campaign, but it was something absolutely pathetic, and she still lost. Okay, but the Democrats have a great way of generating money for their campaigns. And what they do is they have control of the government. They send money overseas for one reason or the other, and that's all been discovered with the Doge. And then they take the kickbacks, okay? And the person that started that was Obama, and that's been acknowledged. So, one day he's going to sit in an electric chair, and we're all going to clap and cheer. I don't know if Hillary Clinton will be sitting on his lap when it happens. But all these people have historically been anti-American. They've proven it, they've shown it, but we've never had a media to expose them because they control the media. They even control things that Fox says. I know because I thought Brett Baird may have woken up, but no, he didn't. He's still sleeping. But he's trying to let us think that, oh, I covered this. I'm a good guy. I wouldn't trust him. So let's look at what Goldberg did. Somebody, and in this case, it was this Chinese guy. Now, the article was on YouTube in a written format, but I can't find it now. It's gone. Because the mistake I made is normally when I find stuff like this, I immediately print it into a PDF and get it into my file, into what I'm going to talk about. And I didn't do that. And that pisses me off because now there's no record of it. It's gone. Somebody removed it. Why? Because if anybody else saw what I saw, they'll go, hey, what's going on here? So Goldberg gets this invitation through this chat on March 11th. So he's attuned to it, and then he gets added to this group text in his name. So somebody added him. Someone had to know who he was. And it was this Chinese advisor that's in the department that needs to be removed from the department. And him and his Chinese wife, who's an agent with the Democratic Party, they need to be put away somewhere and investigated as to what the hell they're doing and who they actually work for. Okay. So he gets this notification on, I believe it was March 12th, about being put on this group, which he evidently didn't have a problem with because he said nothing about it. And then on March 15th is the attack on Yemen, which was very successful. It was a very successful attack. No Americans were killed. 13 were killed at Abbey Gate, but the Democrats didn't complain about when Democrats have issues that they screw up on. The Democrats never attack Democrats. They're not allowed to. In other words, they're so one-sided, and it's so damn obvious when you analyze the history of the Democratic Party, you realize that they've been our enemies for a long time. I'm going to cover just a little bit of it because I've done shows on this stuff. Okay, but it all follows a pattern. That's what gives them away. The pattern, modus operandi. What has to happen for them to do this? What has to happen for them to do that? And Wikipedia sometimes doesn't realize I'm paying attention to what's going on. And they print out stuff for me and go, hey, Mike, please ignore this. But this fact happens to expose everything. So now what happens is this guy Goldberg knows his stuff, but for some reason, he doesn't print it out on the Atlantic and expose it to everybody until the day before this hearing, this hearing on worldwide threats. Worldwide threats. Amazing. This thing happened to be released the day before in the afternoon so that all the morning papers in Washington, especially the Washington Post, which I'm going to cover, those traitors, they go ahead and say, hey, what's going on here? This is secret information. It did nothing. It did nothing. No Americans were killed because of it. It didn't interfere with anything that was going on. But it is what the Democrats have to grab a hold of to try to bring defeat to America. Because in defeat, they gain power. And as long as they're in power, America is in last place. And that's what the communist Chinese want. That's why the Communist Chinese pay for the Democratic Party, and one day we'll see them sitting in electric chairs as we watch, having popcorn while they press the button and toast these assholes back into outer space. So it's about worldwide threats. Well, wait a minute. If the hearing's about worldwide threats, why are they talking about this signal chat? Why? Because the signal chat was established to try to get rid of Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz. Okay, we got a great group of people, and there's one thing that you can read. Read the face of Tulsi Gabbard. Read the face of Radcliffe, the CIA director. What did their faces tell you that their mouths didn't tell you? They have discovered the problem in the federal government, in the CIA, and in the government tied into what's going on. They know it, and now they have to react to it. And what they have to do is they have to sit back and take this bullshit from the Democrats, because why? Why do we have to put up with bullshit from the Democrats? I'll tell you why. What's the history of the Democratic Party? The history of the Democratic Party is to attack the United States whenever they can, to try to prevent the United States from moving forward and getting things done. Why? Because they're communists, and the communists have to win. The communists have to be able to put us into certain problems. So, how often do Democrats cheat in elections? Well, let's see. There's an election every 2 years, so they cheat every 2 years. Follow it closely. You'll see it. You'll find out exactly what's going on. They do this thing called gerrymandering. Okay, they have a group of scumbags that they invented in 2018. Yeah, we got them all in 2018. We got the AOC. We got the Somali pirate. We got the bald-headed fart in Massachusetts who just spews bullshit every day she can. They're all in protected zones. Democrat plus 28. In other words, you need to have an operational situation where there's no Democrats left on the planet for these people not to win their election. Otherwise, they're in. They're in a district that was created for them to always stay in existence. Okay, Adam Schiff was the same thing. Nancy Pelosi, the same thing. Maxine Waters, the same thing. Okay, the biggest assholes in the Democratic Party come from protected zones. So we can never get rid of them unless we have them arrested. That's the name of that tune. So, now one must ask the question. It looks like they're after Pete Hegseth. They want to destroy Pete Hegseth and get him out of the position that he's in. Why? Because the Chinese don't like it. Because the Chinese know that if they were on TV watching Pete Hegseth this morning, they'd be sitting there going, holy shit, we got a problem. Pete Hegseth is going around the Pacific, and he's unifying, and he's developing a program for everyone to work coordinated together, okay? That's his strength. He's been in the military. He has boots on the ground. He's got dust on his boots, and he has fought in combat. Now, who hasn't fought in combat? Senator Wyden, Senator Warren, Senator Bennett, Senator King, Senator Ossoff. None of them have fought in combat. None of them know anything about combat except what they read in the comic section of the Looney Tune magazines they all have to take subscriptions on. Senator Mark Kelly is the only one who has, he flew Gulf War combat missions, highly decorated pilot. He's qualified to ask questions, but Senator Kelly made a key mistake the other day. And what he said was this. He said, excuse me, but I want to get back to the main topic of the day, which was this scenario for the signal. They want to call it signal gate. The Democrats always like to call stuff with gate in it so they can remember what they did to create the problem. Because Problems don't come up by themselves. They're all created by the Democrats. And he made that comment. I want to get back to the topic of the day. Well, the topic of the day is not the signal gate. The topic of the day is worldwide threats. That's the purpose for the meeting. But the purpose for the whole scam, and it's a scam, the whole purpose for the scam and the trap that was set for Trump's people, okay, so that it could be exposed the day before this hearing, so that then you're going to remember. Let me explain something to you. Every hearing in the Congress of the United States has nothing to do with getting to the bottom of something, unless the Republicans are in charge. The Republicans are always going after something that needs to be fixed. The Democrats use this as campaign video. Listen to them. Listen to what they say. Okay, they all have their 5 minutes. It's their 5 minutes of a video that they're putting together that they're going to use for commercials to run for re-election over and over and over and over and over again. That's the purpose for these hearings. Most of these hearings are absolutely fake unless the Republicans are running it. And right now, the Republicans are in charge of Congress. That means they're in charge of these hearings. So that's what's going on. I was going to do a whole different thing. I was going to do this game show thing, but I'm not in the mood for that. Okay. And what happened was I wrote a series of questions down that everybody seemed to bring up, which I thought was interesting. I'm starting to wonder about Jesse Walters. He may have Jesse Waters. He may have a microphone somewhere in this house because he brings up stuff that I was going to bring up. He's done that 2 days in a row, and I'm like, what's going on here? So these are the questions that should have been asked to the Democrats. How many more people were killed at Abbey Gate bombing, and how many wounded and disabled versus what happened on Monday in the Signal Gate thing? Well, 13 Americans were killed. 40 of them were wounded. 100 Afghans were killed. But not one Democrat questioned anybody in the Democratic Party, anybody in the Biden administration, anybody in the military leadership of what they did. They didn't care. What top secret information was leaked during the signal text discussion? Nothing. Nothing was leaked. Nothing was leaked. But that doesn't mean that somebody did not send Goldberg other information from another source that he's got, because his job is to take this and bring it out until next election, because the Democrats, in order to stop their fall to death and into hell, they need to do something. How many people did you suggest resign over the Abbey Gate military disaster? The Democrats didn't suggest anybody resign. What concerns did you state to the media about the Clintons' gyro technology to China fiasco? They never questioned anything that Clinton did. They didn't question him giving nuclear technology to North Korea or gyro technology to China so their missiles could be shoved right up our ass. How much money did you approve of sending to known Middle East terrorist groups through U.S. aid? Was it $40 million? The Democratic Party has been funding terrorism. The Democratic Party has been funding terrorism through U.S. aid. That's why they are fighting U.S. aid, and what Musk is doing, they've organized a campaign against Tesla to try to punish him. Open domestic terrorism against the United States by the Democratic Party. Now, actually, that's not bad, because the Democratic Party has a history of doing things worse. Should you and your fellow congressional Democrats be held liable for supporting Middle East terrorism and hiding it from the American people? Yes, they should be locked into electric chairs. Is your testimony today that you are not aware of trillions of dollars in U.S. taxpayer dollars being funneled to America's enemies, with Democrats getting kickbacks? Remember, I don't just say shit for the sake of saying shit. I take the facts. I take the information that I have, and I logically conclude what's going on. Okay? And what's going on is the Communist Chinese know that they have an American vice president who was in the Marines, Okay, we've got the head of the Defense Department, Pete Hegseth, a young guy, even though he's not as young as the guys he PTs with all the time. But already, new people are coming into the military every single day. Enrollment is through the roof ever since Trump and Hegseth became in charge of the military. What's that tell you? Okay, I've said enough about this. I'm going to give you some proof so you don't think I'm crazy. Okay. And by the way, I was the one who discussed my shows on Rumble. You can go back and see. Upon further review on Rumble, and you'll see my shows about the Ukraine deal and how I know China was involved in the Ukraine deal. Now they're talking about sending troops there because the Ukrainians want the rare earth minerals. That's what they want. The Chinese are not our friends, and they're not the friends of the Russians. I can tell you, Putin does not trust the Chinese. He's got them on his southern border, and they could easily one day send in 1 million troops, like it's nothing, into Siberia and take over the oil fields and the rare earth minerals in Siberia. So I'm going to point some things out to you, and then that's going to be it. Okay? So I'm going through this information about these different senators. And so I'm looking into information on Wyden, who's a senator from Oregon. Now, Oregon, if you look up here, you'll see Oregon. Most of Oregon is Republican. Most of Washington is Republican. Most of California is Republican. Most of Nevada is Republican. Most of Colorado is Republican. Most of Minnesota is Republican. Most of Illinois is Republican. Most of New York is Republican. So why do Democrats run those states? I'm going to tell you why. It's kind of funny. You know, you go through and you look at stuff and you analyze and you figure out and you come to logical conclusions as to what's going on based on facts upon facts upon facts. And one fact we know is that the Democratic Party has a history of attacking and destroying America as best they can for one reason only, and that's to put them in power. And I'm going to get to that, but let me just tell you this. So I'm reading through this, and I come across Multnomah County is one of 36 counties in the U.S. state of Oregon. And as of the 2020 census, the county's population was 815,000. It's the state's smallest and most populous county in the county seat. Portland is the state's most populous city and is in that county. And what did we find out in reading about this? In the 2000 presidential elections, Multnomah County played a decisive role in determining the winner of the state's electoral votes. Al Gore carried the county by 104,764 votes, enough to offset the whole rest of Oregon, where George Bush had a positive vote count of 97,999. So I'm going to show you this, just so you see. See the map of Oregon? See all the counties? See all the counties in Oregon? Yet there's this little tiny county. And there's more Democrats to vote in there than any place else in Oregon. And it's so lopsided that it's probably where all the fake ballots get entered into. Al Gore carried that county by 104,000 votes, which allowed him to win the state of Oregon by 7,000 votes. In other words, if he didn't take that county, Bush would have got that county. The Democratic tilt was repeated in 2004 when John Kerry won by 161,000 votes, and in 2008 when Barack Obama won by 205,000 votes. So that's how Democrats continue to get and win the state of Oregon, even though the majority of Oregon is red. That means the Republicans in the state of Oregon, in the state of Washington, in the state of California, New York, Illinois, Minnesota, Colorado, Nevada, all live as minorities as majorities. Okay? Now, I'm going to read you just a little history. Okay? In 1924, the county's 3 commissioners, this is Multnomah County. In 1924, what was 1924? The county's 3 commissioners were indicted and recalled by voters in response to gross irregularities in the awarding of contracts for construction of the Burnside and Ross Island bridges. Since all 3 had been supported by the Ku Klux Klan, which of course is a Democratic Party historical operation. Huh? Yeah. So, now we'll get to this. So, I'm wrapping up here. We're wrapping it up. Okay. What is the modus operandi of the Democratic Party? The modus operandi of the Democratic Party, and I've already done shows on all of this. All you have to do is go to, upon further review, on Rumble, and you'll see them. You'll see them. I've already covered this stuff. That's why I don't have to read anything. I know about it because it's ingrained in my brain, and I haven't lost all my gray matter power, so I'm remembering it. What's the history of the Democratic Party? And here's the thing, landslides equals Democrat destruction. Landslides equal Democrat destruction. When Republicans win by landslides, that means the Democratic Party's in trouble. So what does the Democratic Party have to do to stop it? They have to cheat. They have to assassinate. They have to impeach. Modus operandi. They have a history of it. Okay, now let's go back to 1913 when the Democrats got into power. And one of the reasons that Woodrow Wilson got elected was because Teddy Roosevelt was shot during that campaign. He survived, but a lot of people probably figured that he's not going to make it, so we're going to end up voting for Wilson. And Wilson was able to put us into World War I and send a lot of our money overseas to their buddies. That's how this whole program of international bullshit began. Okay. The Progressives, which is a lunatic name for communists, back in 1913, they came up with a tax program, and they came under the 16th Amendment. The tax plan in this country is tax the people who make money and don't tax the people who get money. Tax the people who make money. Don't tax the people who get money. In other words, all the money that is taken from the federal government and sent to these NGOs and nonprofits for years. That's how the Democrats siphon money out of your pockets and my pockets and given to these NGOs. It's been exposed now more than ever before. That's why they don't want this to continue. They can't allow Musk and Doge to continue because they're going to find $3 trillion worth of fraud. I know I've already calculated based on what I've seen. And I do know something about math and science and finance because I was in that business for some 50 years. I kept saying, yeah, I've done this for 30 years. Then everyone hit me. Mike, it's 50 years, not 40. So in 1920, the American people said, to hell with the Democrats and the taxes they shoved up our ass. And the Federal Reserve, they shoved up our ass. And the 17th Amendment, they shoved up our ass. Basically what they said was, look, we don't want the states to have representation in the Senate, even though it says so in the Constitution. We want millionaires, global millionaires, to have the power of the Senate. And so that's why when I think about running for Senate in Massachusetts, I'm told I need to raise $25 million. Now, to wealthy people, that's nothing. But to me, that's a crime. And I told them as soon as they said that to me, that was it. Well, it's like a shutoff valve in my head. No, I'm not doing that. I was not raised to take $25 million and spend it on a political campaign when there's veterans on the street, when there's homeless on the street, when there's people starving in the country, okay? And the reason why they're starving is because available funding that would not hurt the United States is actually being used to go overseas in fake formats to come back and be put in the pocket of Democrats like Kamala Harris. So she has $2.5 billion to spend, or actually $2.5 billion to waste on a campaign because she's full of shit. And in order to overcome the full of shit aspect of a Democratic candidate, you have to spend money and lie your ass off by attacking your opponent. Make your opponent seem like they're such assholes, there's no way you can vote for them. That's their campaign. So what happens is in 1920, the Republicans win by a landslide. Okay. 1924 comes around. Republicans win by another landslide. Why? Well, number one, they're not spending a dime over their budget. The prosperity is booming in the United States, the roaring 20s. Okay, even with prohibition going on, everybody was making money. And things were wonderful. There was no need for Democrats anymore. You guys shoved it up our ass with a tax code. We're not going to forget that. 1928, another Republican landslide. Real big landslides. What are the Democrats going to do? And in 1928, the Democrats came out with a platform, and the main part of the platform was saying that the Republicans were corrupt. That the corruption was so extensive, it was unbelievable. It was all bullshit, and it didn't work. So what did the Democrats have to do to stop the Republican Party from running the country for the rest of their born days? Yeah, listen, we created you guys back in 1913, the Federal Reserve, and you guys are supposed to do what we tell you to do. So this is what we want. We want you to make believe that inflation's like 5%, even though it's zero. We all know that, but the average American doesn't know that. We want you to go ahead and jump interest rates to 6%, even though it should be zero or a half a point. But we want you to do that. We want you to tighten up the money supply so we can create a depression, the Great Depression. Thank you. So the Democratic Party created the Depression, and you don't have to believe me. All you have to do is type in Milton Friedman, okay, and type in Great Depression, and you'll see his video where he explains exactly what happened with the Great Depression. And there should never have been a Great Depression. There could have been a correction, and as I've shown on my shows before, I showed you what the stock market was doing over those years and how it was running normal, okay? And when they say the crash occurred in 1929, it doesn't show that on the graph. They may have hit a bottom point, but then it came back up. It didn't finish the day at that level. The crash actually didn't occur until 1931. But the Democrats were able to scare the American people into thinking that Republicans were destroying the nation, even though they hadn't been, and that the Great Depression was their fault, which it wasn't. And so they got 50 people added to the House in 1930's election. 50 people. And then in 1932, they picked up 110. And they were entrenched in running our government for 60 years. 60 years. And they only put us through World War I, Korea, Vietnam, because that's how Democrats make their money. Send money overseas for whatever you want to use it for, and then get the kickbacks. Because you have to have kickbacks. You have to steal from the federal government to build money. Because what other system creates millions of dollars in money except the federal government spending money? And now you've got Doge exposing all this stuff and realizing the scams that have been going on for years. For years. Okay. So I'm looking at an article, and here it is. Okay. 2018 United States House of Representative elections. Now, why am I looking at that? Well, that's where we got the squad from. 2018. They all got added in 2018. So somebody went out to find these pieces of garbage and have them run in districts that they will never be challenged again by a Republican. The Democratic Party won control of the House of Representatives in 2018 midterm elections. The Democrats gained a net total of 41 seats from the total number of seats they had won in 2016. This was their largest gain of House seats in an election since the 1974 elections, when the Democrats gained 49 House seats. Okay. They gained 50 seats and 110 seats after their fake Great Depression. Why did they gain seats in 2018? You may recall that Donald Trump was under attack by the Democrats 5 minutes after he won the election. And so they had the Mueller investigations, you had the Russian bullshit, all hoaxes, everything, all a lie. All lies. All lies. You then had 2 impeachments that had nothing to do with this election, but the 2020 election. All of it was lies. All of it was bullshit to put Democrats in power and shove shit up our ass. That's what you've been putting up with. You want to look in your wallet and see how much money's left? Okay. Spray some powder on it and look at the fingerprints, because the fingerprints of Democrats are all over your wallet. So what happens is, when the Democrats are in trouble, they have to do something about it, and they have to cheat. Okay, and even if they have to come up with some great thing like the Great Depression, they did. See the video from Milton Friedman. You'll see it on my show when I talk about the Great Depression, the fake Great Depression. Imagine all the people who suffered just to put Democrats in power. That's their mentality. They don't give a shit about the American people. They still belong to the Confederacy. All the way back when they had the blacks as slaves in the plantations. See that right here? That's their plantations. And the blue here is where they live to control everything. That's how they look at it. Okay? That's their plan. That's how they figured it out. So in 2018, what was important about 2018? Which you don't even know. You don't even know. But there's a guy named Mark Elias who's a criminal, Democrat criminal, works for Perkins Coie. Oh, jumps onto them. And in 2018, he had to go into Wisconsin and work a detail to be able to funnel around with some campaign information and set it up so they could get a new judge, district judge, put in that would be a Democrat, because they needed him, because in 2020, when the census comes out, the Democrats wanted to be able to pull their gerrymandering shit and build districts that are illegal, but they get away with it because of the way they do things. Remember, they have the media on their side. ABC, NBC, CBS, CNN, MSNBC, and sometimes Fox. Okay? So they've got it all. And the Chinese invest millions of dollars into this media through advertising dollars, so that you don't know that the Chinese are controlling our media. But they are. So that was 2018. Now, the other thing about 2018 was that we weren't paying attention to, but the Democrats had to win 2018 in 6 governor's races. The Democrats took over 6 states during 2018 in that election, so they could turn around and control the planned stealing of the 2020 election. Now, how did they steal the 2020 election? Real simple. It was real simple, and it's all documented. I've already covered it. Okay, Perkins Coie and Mark Elias were behind it. They filed a fake lawsuit against the Democrats. So a Democrat organization hired a Democrat organization to sue a Democratic governor, Democrat Secretary of State, to give them cover for making changes to the election laws that they are not entitled to do, because the Constitution clearly states that only the state legislatures can change the manner of an election. But in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, these are all Republican legislatures. So they couldn't expect Republicans to go ahead and cheat on the election, so they had to do it themselves. And that was the reason for the 15 million fake ballots and the 15 million fake names that they put on the registrations, so they could go ahead and put that through. So 2018, they had to fix the elections. It was very important for them to win the midterms. The other reason was they wanted to impeach Trump. And in order to impeach Trump, they have to have control of the House, which is what they got through election fraud in California and other areas where they gerrymandered the shit out of certain districts so they could cheat. That's what they do for them to get these things done. So this article here then talks about the fact that the 1974 elections, the Democrats gained 49 House seats. Now, why would the Democrats gain 49 seats in 1974? What happened? Oh, here, let me read this. Ever hear of the Washington Post? Officials discussed military planning and unclassified chart. Doge struggling to turn up Social Security fraud. Doge is not struggling to turn up Social Security fraud. They've toned up so much of it. The problem is that a Democrat judge in some part of Tanganyika is saying that his district has more importance and therefore Doge can't continue. That's where the Democrats are trying to put a stop on this because they're all going to go to jail for this stuff. Officials discussed military planning in unclassified chat. Well, that's an opinion, and we know it's bullshit, but it's the Washington Post, and the Washington Post is involved in every major scam. And one of those scams was what turned out to be the impeachment of Richard Nixon. Okay, I've covered this before, and I'm just going to mention again because we are now in the same point. The Democrats realize that the Republicans probably can control the government for 12 years because they're going to win. They've already won this election. They're probably going to win 2028 with Marco or Vance. I'm going to say Marco, and then Marco will do another 4 years, and then you'd have Vance or somebody else run. But that's 12 years that the Democrats will not be in power. They can't stand that, okay? They're going to get fired by their bosses, the Chinese Communist Party. So they have to do something because they have to be in power. If they're not in power, they can't steal. Get it? They can't steal. And that's what they do best. So what happened? Well, let's see. It's 1972. It's May of 1972. Richard Nixon is not campaigning. Why? Because he didn't have to campaign. He says, I'm just going to be the president, and that's it. I'm not going to bother about campaigning. And so he didn't campaign. He didn't care about it. The Democrats were in disarray. They ended up picking this lunatic McGovern from Massachusetts. But McGovern did take the state of Massachusetts. Nixon took the other 49. That's a landslide. Now, of course, when Republicans win by landslides, you have to impeach them or shoot them. Reagan won by landslides, they shot him. Okay. Trump has won basically by landslide. They tried to kill him. Okay. The Democrats will not hold back on anything because they're not our friends. They're not Americans. They're the enemy of this country. They've been that way since they shot Lincoln in 1865. Why? Because they got so much done by assassinating a Republican president that it became nom de plume. It became a modus operandi. Okay, and if they're not going to shoot him, then they're going to impeach him for one reason or another. Okay, so they can't allow Nixon to stay as president and win 49 states. They just can't. So what do? They come up with an idea. This is the Democrats come up with an idea to hire these 4 or 5 guys that were in the CIA, and we don't know what country the CIA represents. We know it's not the United States. We know it's not the United States. The CIA goes ahead and they hire, the Democrats go ahead and hire these 5 CIA guys that were involved in the Bay of Pigs. They were involved in the assassination of JFK. Okay, and now we're to believe that Richard Nixon hired these guys? What did he want them to find? Why would he send these 5 guys into the Watergate Hotel, into a Democrat office? What did he need to know that he didn't know now from the newspapers? He was only leading by 19 percentage points in the polls. 19. Not 2%, not 1%, not 5%, not 10%. He was leading whoppingly 19%. It was a done deal. Why would he hire guys to go in to the Watergate Hotel in May to bug the office? The mistake these idiots made was they didn't get caught. So they had to do it again. So they had to go back in June and do the same thing, except this time they said, okay, look, this is what we want you to do. This is the Democrats telling these guys what to do, because Nixon has nothing to do with these people. Matter of fact, the impeachment panels, the Democrats, they had this information on like tape. You know, remember they had the tapes and they had Nixon? And in one tape, Nixon is standing there and he says this, pardon this expression, what the F were these people looking for? Now, wait a minute. We're led to believe that you instructed these people what to do. Yeah, you were in China in February. Yeah, you were in the Soviet Union in May. But you took time out of your busy schedule to call up 5 assholes from the Bay of Pigs and the assassination of JFK to find out if they could go in and find out some information you didn't need to know. You just needed to get caught. So the Washington Post, which is sitting out there with the FBI, they're waiting for these guys to get caught. Okay, come on, let's get caught this time. Come on, we told you we wanted 1,400 copies. Copy 1,400 documents. We know that would take you like a day and a half. I'm sure you'll get caught then. And they did. And that's what Watergate was all about. Watergate was as fraudulent as the Great Depression. It was as fraudulent as the Great Depression. But when you control the media, when you own the New York Times and you own the Washington Post, when you own CBS, ABC, NBC, NPR, PBS, you know, the 2 public broadcasting stations that we pay for that spews shit at us and supports the Communist Chinese Party and their buddies, the Democrats. That's where we are right now. That's where we are right now. Once this signal thing goes away, there'll be something else. Because the Democrats have to be in power or else they're going to die of tuna fish sandwich cans. They'll be eating empty tuna fish cans, and they don't want to do that. Okay? They don't want to do that. They don't want to be living on the street poverty-stricken. These people need to be millionaires. They need to be in charge of their plantations. They need to have slaves. Any color will do. They just have to be our slaves and do what we tell them to do, because we're Democrats. We're progressives. We're Confederates. We're Chinese communist people who work for the benefit of communist China. And you can take that to the damn bank. I love you. Goodbye.